Welcome to Family History Mysteries, a podcast that tells the stories uncovered through family history research, the unexpected stories of everyday people. I am an avid family historian who has been compiling my family tree for over 15 years, with nearly 20,000 people recorded in my trees. And please put a review on my podcast. That will certainly help in getting the word out there and creating more listenership. Shorts episode number 27. The De Luca brothers. In 1894, Albert and Vincent De Luca, aged only 12 and 10, were charged under the Industrialised Schools Act in Sydney of leaving their home. Joseph De Luca, their father, was the complainant. In the police gazettes in Sydney, a warrant has been issued by the Central Police Bench for the arrest of Albert De Luca and Vincent De Luca, charged under the Industrial Schools Act. Albert is 12 years of age, 4 foot 6 inches high, with a stout build, dark complexion and dark brown hair, dressed in dark clothes and a black soft hat. No boots, a street violin player. Vincent, 10 years of age, 4 foot 3 inches high, slender build, dark complexion, black hair, dressed in dark clothes and a brown overcoat with no boots. Both left their home at Fowler's Place on the 20th and have not since been heard of. Complainant Joseph De Luca of number 5 Fowler's Place off Castlereagh Street. Albert De Luca was actually born Carlo De Luca and known also as Charles Albert De Luca, and Vincent De Luca was born Vincenzo Eugene De Luca. Their father, Joseph De Luca, was born Giuseppe De Luca, and their mother was Innocente Gontaretti. Innocente was 13 years younger than Giuseppe. The family emigrated on the 25th of May 1891 to Sydney. Carlo, otherwise known as Albert, was born in 1881 in Buenos Aires, Argentina. On the 11th of October 1899, deserters in the New South Wales Artillery. Garrison musician A. De Luca, born in Spain, about 17 years and 6 months of age, 5 foot 1¼ inches high, with brown hair, hazel eyes and dark complexion, scar on right hip, band boy, Sobrane, under 2 years of service. So this is saying that Carlo absconded from the Sobrane, which was an industrial school ship. On the 30th of March 1904, Carlo arrived in New York from Naples at the age of 23. Family members believe that the brothers toured with the Barnum and Bailey Circus in America from around 1900 to 1908. Carlo played the fiddle or violin and Vincent played the trombone on their tour in America. He was then known as Charles and went by the surname of King and married Suzanne Moselle Wolfe in Simla, Bengal, India on the 7th of June 1918. He stated his father was Joseph King and that he was born in 1876. On the 2nd of November 1922, they had moved to Melbourne, as in the Melbourne Argus. It says that Charles Henry Green, acting collector of customs for the state of Victoria, proceeded against Charles Albert King, a musician, at the Kew Court yesterday, on a charge of having had in his possession at Hawthorn on the 26th of October certain smuggled goods, including leopard, tiger and wolf skins, and other property contrary to the Customs Act of the Commonwealth of Australia. A charge of having smuggled goods in her possession was also preferred against Suzanne King, a married woman. Both accused were remanded to appear in the Kew Court on the 1st of November. On the 15th of November 1922, in the Melbourne Herald, valuable carpets and silk goods, including a tiger skin, a panther skin and leopard skins, were exhibits in the Kew Court today, when Charles Albert King and Suzanne King, a young married couple residing in Hawthorn, were charged on information from Detective Inspector Gleeson with having on the 26th of October in their possession certain smuggled goods. King was charged with being in possession of a tiger skin, 4 leopard skins, 9 malar skins, 10 carpets, silk curtains, doilies and other first-hand goods, valued at £158, and Mrs. King was charged with the possession of a shawl, 16 blouse lengths, cosies, 51 doilies, a pillow cover, crochet work and mats valued at £25. David Seaton, examiner officer stationed at the number 18 shed on the North Wharf, stated that Mr. and Mrs. King called on him on the 2nd of October. They informed him that they'd arrived by the Nadana from India on the previous day and had some luggage that they wished to have passed.
In response to his inquiries, the defendant said the luggage consisted of personal and household effects. The witness told them that they'd been in use for 12 months and were not over the value of £100 and they could come in free. They did not tell him that any of the articles they wished to land were new goods. Both charges were dismissed. In giving his decision, the magistrate said that though there was no doubt suspicious circumstances in the case against Mrs. King, the trouble seemed to be entirely due to the customs officer who had indicated the boxes he wished to have opened and neglected other packages which contained dutiable goods. It was not alleged that the defendants brought the goods to Melbourne intending to smuggle them. They had been open and above board. A police charge against Mrs. King of hawking without a licence was, at the suggestion of the magistrate, withdrawn. On the 25th of August 1925 in the Melbourne Herald, Mrs. Charles A. King, who is manageress of Amalgamated Newspapers Limited in Calcutta, is on a visit to Australia where she was born. She is staying at her home, 2 Gibney Street, Hawthorn. The company's papers are the New Empire, an evening paper, and the Bengali, a morning paper. Mrs. King reached her present post while still a young woman 7 years ago. As a businesswoman, Mrs. King has definite ideas of trade between India and Australia. She thinks that there should be a big demand for Australian goods in India and for Indian products in Australia. While admitting that there is at present a prejudice against Australian goods in the East, she is confident that there is a growing demand for them. On the 1st of March 1941 in the Melbourne Argus, Charles wrote a letter into the paper. It is to be regretted that Mr. Fadden, in banning the proposed opera tour, has not considered the plight of unemployed musicians, of whom I am one, and who can only look forward to seasons of opera or ballet, which one of the few entrepreneurs in Melbourne offer to the public, and incidentally create work for family men such as myself. Surely the will to work for an honest living should at least be granted the opportunity for doing so. Perhaps Mr. Fadden will find suitable work for those of us who have spent a lifetime in the study of our art, many of whom, I dare say, like myself, have sacrificed a lot in serving king and country in the past. It is hoped that this question will be reviewed and the ban lifted to give honest citizens a chance to exist, if not to live. Yours, C.A. King of Hawthorn. On the 9th of April 1945 in the Melbourne Argus. After a struggle in her front garden, which finally ended on the footpath outside her home in Gibney Street, Hawthorn, on Saturday afternoon, an alleged housebreaker was captured by Mrs. Suzanne King and held until help arrived. She heard her dogs barking and, on investigating, found a man in the kitchen trying to open the refrigerator. Mrs. King pushed him out the back door and ran to the front of the house, intending to use the phone. Mrs. King then noticed a clock under the man's arm and ran after him. Although the man was thick-set and about 6 foot in height, and Mrs. King weighs only 7 stone 4 pound and is only 5 foot 5 inches in height, she managed to hold him until help arrived. Mr. C.A. King, who's in the orchestra at His Majesty's Theatre, said last night, "I'm proud of my wife. It was a darned plucky thing to do." A man's been charged at the Hawthorn Police Station with housebreaking and stealing. Carlo, under his changed name, Charles Albert King, died in Hawthorn, Victoria, aged 72 in 1953. Suzanne died on the 23rd of November 1962. Suzanne King left £20,747 in her will, and it seems that they had no children. £7,000 was bequeathed to her sister, Venus Ruby Carroll, of Bombay, India. She bequeathed her Cadillac car to Dr. Elwyn Berwick of East Brighton. She bequeathed to the President of the Cactus and Succulent Society of Australia £100 to be used for the purpose of providing a perpetual trophy named the Charles King Trophy to be held each year between the members of the society. £500 went to the Dogs Home and Animal Hospital in North Melbourne. And also she wished a bed to be named Charles and Suzanne King as a memorial to her husband and herself in each public hospital in Melbourne. To her niece, Mrs. India Thora Gertrude of Bombay, India, she gave her diamond Marquise ring and wedding ring. Vincent De Luca, known as Vincent, was born on the 28th of December 1883. In the Sydney Australian Star on the 8th of December 1892. Kate Brown, 33, after being fined 10 shillings for drunkenness, was asked to explain certain hostility shown to a juvenile Italian harpist named Vincent De Luca. It appeared from the evidence that while Kate was suffering the effects of yesterday's terrible heat, she saw a lad meandering along the street with his wild harp slung behind. She rushed him like a mad bull, and the lad and the harp went down like skittles. It was good fun for Kate while it lasted, but unless she parts with £3 for the assault and 30 shillings for the damage to the harp, she'll retire to an establishment where there are no harps for 2 months and 21 days. Vincent went on to be a professional musician for most of his life, playing harp or trombone in orchestras. He could also play many other musical instruments. On the 7th of October 1896 in the New South Wales Police Gazette, missing from his home at Little Macquarie Street since the 1st, Vincent De Luca, a native of Italy, 13 years of age, 4 foot 6 inches high, with a stout build and scar over left eye, supposed to be going about the country playing a harp. Information to his father at the above address. And a week later in the Sydney Evening News, a reward of £1 will be paid to anyone giving the address of Eugene Vincent De Luca, aged 13. Anyone harbouring him will be prosecuted. Joseph De Luca of Little Macquarie Street. And he's still not found 7 months later, as on the 16th of March 1897 in the Sydney Evening News, a reward of 5 shillings to any person that will give information to the police or at 17 Albert Street for the whereabouts of a boy aged 13, Eugenio Vincent De Luca, a harp player with a scar on forehead. On the 17th of May 1897 in the Sydney Australian Star, Eugenio De Luca, a young incorrigible of 13, was ordered on board the Sobraon. He was said to be a confirmed street wanderer. The father informed the bench that he could do absolutely nothing with his son. So it seems that he went to the same industrial school ship as his brother did. Nothing seen of him until the 20th of September 1920 in the Melbourne Herald at the Armadale Theatre, D.W. Norton's famous orchestra, and it mentions Vincent De Luca. Vincent grew up mainly in New South Wales until the age of 18 when he travelled to America. He travelled the country as a trombone player in Barnum and Bailey's Circus, and it's there where he met his first wife, an Australian trapeze artist, Elsie Larkin. He married Elsie May Victoria Larkin on the 11th of March 1908 in Waterloo, New South Wales, and they had 2 sons, Albert in 1909 and Vincent in 1916. In divorce records, Vincent outlined that upon their marriage, he occupied the occupation of a musician, but since marrying, he also was a miner and an electrician. On the 29th of November 1917, Vincent is listed as an alien, and it says the reason that the applicant did not register before was owing to 6 years of age on arrival into the Commonwealth, and he did not think he had to until he was notified by the police last week, and he registered at once. So due to the war, being an Italian, they all needed to register. Then in 1916, there was a notice of change of abode. Vincent Eugene De Luca, his former residence was at Bridge Road, Burnley, as a musician, and he intended to change his place of abode of 325 High Street, Malvern, to 27 Brooks Crescent in Hawthorne. He resided with friends at Leichhardt in New South Wales, and Elsie went to live with their aunt at Paddington in New South Wales. They continued to live apart for 3 weeks. When they went to Mount Kira in New South Wales, he worked as a miner. While living at Kira, they had their child Albert Edward. They lived there for 10 months, after which Elsie obtained employment in Brisbane, and she went there alone with her husband's consent to take up a position. He joined 3 weeks later, and they lived in Brisbane for 2 years and then came to Melbourne. They arrived in 1911 and lived in Carlton. After living there for 6 months, they went to Malvern and remained there for 2 years, and then moved to Prahran for 5 years, where they finally separated in April 1919. While living in Prahran, their second child, Vincent Eugene, was born. Vincent wrote that after the birth of their second child, his wife overindulged in liquor and would often become violent and would decline to do anything for me. While living at Brisbane, she had a miscarriage, and as a result of speaking to her about the matter, we quarrelled. I did my best while in Brisbane to placate the respondent by giving her all my earnings, but despite this, she expressed dissatisfaction. Nothing was saved in Brisbane, and we were compelled to sell our furniture in order to pay our fares for Melbourne. We arrived in Melbourne and I eked out a scanty living as a musician, and all I earned I gave to her. Upon our arrival in Melbourne, we went to live with my wife's family, and quarrels occurred between us, and in my opinion she was being influenced by her people. I threatened to leave her unless she joined me in a home apart from her people. She agreed to join me living in Malvern. However, relations were strained between us. She offered me money to go to other women, and I declined to do so. She neglected her domestic duties and was frequently away from her home with her mother, and on one occasion I caught her going to a hotel for a beer with her mother. I remonstrated both of them and a quarrel ensued. Trouble of this class continually occurred between the respondent and myself and caused much distress. While we were living in Paran, on one occasion, she called me a dago and alleged that my mother was a prostitute. I became incensed at this and slapped the respondent across the face. I expressed my regret, but thereafter the respondent refused to speak to me, and for the next 3 years we occupied separate beds. I consulted a solicitor who wrote to the respondent asking her to amend her conduct, but she took no notice of this letter. I agreed to separate from her and pay her £1 a week for maintenance and 10 shillings per week for our children, and accordingly finally parted in the month of April 1919, and I have continued to make the payments. The respondent continued to reside in Paran, and I went to live in Richmond. On the 12th of February 1921 in the Melbourne Herald, the Coburg Electric Tramway Band has appointed Mr. Vincent De Luca, the former trombone soloist of the Malvern Tramway Band, to the position of bandmaster. And then he added in the divorce papers that he had seen her in company with other men. He spoke to her 18 months ago and told her that she must keep straight, and if I found her offending in a like manner, I would stop her maintenance. Thinking that such a threat would be sufficient to make the respondent refrain from keeping company with other men. Some time later, I saw the respondent meet a man at the Palais des Danses at St Kilda, and this aroused my suspicion, and I caused the respondent to be watched, and as a result, on the 17th of May 1924, together with 2 inquiry agents, I went to the respondent's home in Alfred Street, Paran, and from what I saw, I was told by the said 2 inquiry agents that I am convinced the respondent has been guilty of adultery. I first suspected improper or adulterous intercourse between them in December 1923. As a result, Vincent and Elsie divorced in 1924. Vincent was living at Hawthorn, Victoria at this time and was working as an electrical engineer on the Melbourne Tramways Board. He listed that the children at the time of the divorce was Albert Edward De Luca, now 16 years of age, who was born at Mount Kira in New South Wales, and Vincent Eugene De Luca, now aged 8 years, born at Paran in Victoria. On the 19th of November 1924 in the Melbourne Argus, Vincent Eugene De Luca, aged 39, of Hawthorn, electrician, divorced from Elsie May Victoria De Luca, aged 37, of Paran, on the ground of misconduct with Alexander Zegan of St Kilda, who joined as co-respondent. The marriage was celebrated on the 11th of March 1908 in Waterloo, New South Wales. There are 2 children. The respondent's costs amounted to £30 to be paid by the petitioner. The respondent also to have custody of the younger child and be allowed £15 a week for its maintenance. On the 22nd of November 1924 in the Melbourne Weekly Times, Italian divorce suit, raid, chase and threat. If you move, I'll fill you full of lead, was the threat alleged to have been made to Alexander Zegan by an irate Italian husband on the 9th of the 17th of May. The story was told to Mr. Justice McFarlane in the divorce court this week. Zegan was a co-respondent in the suit brought by Vincent Eugene De Luca, 39, electrician of Hawthorn, against Elsie May De Luca, 37, of Paran, on the grounds of misconduct with Zegan. Petitioner told Mr. Justice McFarlane that he threatened to shoot Zegan after he pursued and caught him following a raid on the house occupied by his wife. As the parties were leaving the court, 2 women came to blows. The arrival of a constable stopped the fight. The suit was contested, with all parties being present. Andrew Thomas Berryman, a private inquiry agent, said the night of the 17th of May, in company with De Luca and another agent named Oliver Mackay, they went to a house in Alfred Street, Paran. There was no light showing, and the witness burst in the back door with an axe. As he and the petitioner rushed in, a woman's voice called out, "Who's there?" Almost immediately, a dim light appeared in a bedroom. Rushing into the room, De Luca and the witness saw the respondent sitting in bed. She said, "What do you mean by breaking into my house and frightening me?" De Luca demanded, "Where is that man you have had here? The house is surrounded and he cannot get away. We know he is still here." "There is no man here, don't be silly," retorted the respondent. While De Luca was searching the room, Mackay at the front of the house called out, "Come quick, he's getting away." After a long chase, De Luca caught Zegan and said to him, "We've caught you red-handed this time." When they brought Zegan back to the house, Mrs. De Luca rushed at her husband and there was a bit of a scuffle. Zegan attempted to strike the petitioner and the witness separated them. De Luca stated he was formerly a musician and his wife had been a circus performer prior to their marriage in March 1908. There were 2 children. After the birth of the first child, the respondent took to drink and became violent. On one occasion, she called him a dago and he slapped her face. They parted in April 1917. Mrs. De Luca stated the trouble first occurred between herself and her husband when, as a result of certain discoveries, she accused him of being unfaithful to her. De Luca was granted a decree nisi. Following the divorce of his parents, Vincent Eugene De Luca Jr. was placed in a boys' home called Clifton Boys' Home in Wedderburn, Victoria, from 1925 to 1929, so from the ages of 9 to 13 years. His brother Albert lived with a family with the surname of Royal. In the papers of his state care, it says Vincent De Luca's mother paid him a surprise visit the other day. Mrs. De Luca was a fairy godmother to every small boy who received balloons, fruit and lollies, for which they were grateful. On the 21st of May 1926 in the Melbourne Argus, Eugene De Luca of Hawthorn, of Italian nationality, born at Saponara, Italy, and resident of 30 years in Australia, now residing in Hawthorn, intends to apply for naturalisation under the Commonwealth Nationality Act. Vincent then married Iris Marjorie Agnes Brown in Hawthorn, Victoria on the 19th of February 1927. They had a son, Irvin, in March 1930. Irvin Cyril De Luca had his photo in the paper as a champion baby at the Greensboro Baby Show. On the 19th of June 1930 in the Melbourne Age, Robert Thomas Brown of Brooks Crescent, Hawthorn, printer's reader, deceased. Probate may be granted to Eugene Vincent De Luca of Brooks Crescent, Hawthorn, electrician, the sole executor named and appointed in the will. On the 15th of December 1954 in the Melbourne Sun News pictorial, Vincent's wife, Marjorie Agnes De Luca, died on the 14th of December at their home at Brooks Crescent in Hawthorn. It listed that Vincent Eugene De Luca was known as Bob, and she was the loved mother of Irvin and a dear stepmother of Albert and Vincent, and she was 54. And Vincent De Luca died on the 20th of May 1964 in Preston, Victoria, at the age of 80.
If you are interested in sharing your story on my podcast Family History Mysteries, please go to my Facebook page and send me a message. If you would like some assistance in filling in the gaps in your family tree to see what mysteries you solve, please get in touch. And don't forget, you can have early access to episodes by subscribing, and you'll also gain access to bonus episodes.